Today I'll share our 8 keys to successfully growing in winter in an unheated greenhouse. There are other methods that also work very well, but I'll focus specifically on what we do. The first key is to grow with the season. Here in Zone 5, that means growing cold-hardy crops that can tolerate frequent freezing temperatures. Leafy greens like lettuce, spinach, chard, tatsoi, mizuna, and sorrel are excellent choices, but so are carrots, beets, leeks, and green onions. I'll provide a more complete list of winter crops in the description. Even if you live in a warmer climate, like Zone 8 through 10A, you're likely to have more success this time of year growing cold-hardy crops than summer crops. With the sun lower in the sky, shorter daylight hours, and of course colder temperatures, summer crops are likely to struggle without supplemental heating and lighting. Of course, if you decide to go that route, that's fine. But our focus here today is on growing without supplemental heating or lighting. The second key is to grow in the sun. This picture gives you a better idea of why our winter garden is located where it is. It's the only sunny part of the yard this time of year. With the sun lower in the sky, 2/3 of the yard is shaded by buildings. So when you're selecting the site for your winter garden, make sure it gets as much sun as possible in the winter. And be aware that the sunniest summer location may not be the sunniest winter location, especially if there are buildings and deciduous trees nearby. Our hoop house is also oriented east to west, which maximizes the amount of sunlight that hits it as the sun arcs through the sky. The third key is to grow under cover. According to Elliott Coleman, each layer of protection effectively moves your garden space 1.5 zones to the south. So in our case, our cold frames inside a hoop house create a Zone 8 microclimate here in Zone 5, which is a huge advantage. And of course, it's hard to overstate the advantage of not having our crops buried in snow or exposed to harsh winter winds. Of course, if you live in a warmer climate, you may not need 2 layers of protection. 1 layer should suffice in Zone 8, and in Zones 9 and above, you probably won't need any protection unless you're expecting snow or much colder than usual temperatures. To give you a better idea of the benefits of growing under 2 layers of protection, I'll share 2 weeks of recent temperature data in my next video. The data will include daily max and min temperatures outside, in the hoop house, and in one of the cold frames. The fourth key is to grow in the ground, or at least a raised bed, rather than containers. The smaller the container, the faster the soil will freeze, which is not good for your plants. A larger soil mass, on the other hand, will retain more heat, keep your plants warmer on cold nights, and improve their chances of survival. The handful of pots we have in our hoop house have repeatedly frozen and thawed, while the soil in the walkway and raised beds has never come close to freezing. The heat retained by the largest soil mass is a big advantage. The fifth key is to grow in succession, starting some cold-hardy crops in early summer, some in late summer, and some in the fall. Because germination rates and plant growth slow down in the fall and winter, it's a very good idea to have some plants that are at or near maturity going into the fall. For example, we have mature collards and chard that were started in early summer, mature lettuce and endive that were started in late summer, and tatsoi, spinach, and claytonia seedlings that just got started in the fall. This succession will ensure we have crops to harvest all winter and into the spring. If, on the other hand, we didn't start planting until the fall or winter, we'd have very little to harvest until spring. The sixth goal is to vent our low tunnels, cold frame, and hoop house to prevent overheating. This is actually simpler than you might think, because our goal isn't to provide optimal temperatures at all times. Instead, it's just to keep the plants from freezing or overheating. As a result, we're able to take a relatively low-effort approach with few interventions. During the winter months, many days are cold enough that we simply keep both layers covered all day. And at most, we make 2 venting adjustments per day, one in the morning and one in the evening, depending on the weather forecast. As a general rule, if it's going to be above freezing, both layers can be vented. The warmer and sunnier it's expected to be, the more I vent. I like to keep the temperature inside under 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 26 degrees Celsius. If it's going to be 20 to 32 degrees Fahrenheit, I vent the inner layer on sunny days. I keep both layers covered on overcast days and after sunset. Finally, if the forecast calls for temps below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, I keep both layers covered, even when it's sunny. Though I find this manual approach to be fairly simple to manage, I do think the automatic window and vent openers make a lot of sense if you're very busy or just don't want the hassle of having to vent your hoop house. I've never used any of these products, so I don't have a specific recommendation, but I definitely think they're worth checking out. The seventh key is to water only when necessary. During the winter, plants need less water, especially in colder climates. With the sun lower in the sky and shorter daylight hours, less water is lost to evaporation. And here in Zone 5 in midwinter, plants are usually dormant and simply don't require much water. Since covering the hoop house in late November, we've only watered 3 times. And I don't anticipate watering again until late February or early March. When we do choose to water, we'll only do so when it's well above freezing in the hoop house and the soil appears dry on the surface. Watering when it's freezing can cause ice to build up on plants, which isn't good for them. The 8th key to winter growing success is a very simple one. Don't harvest your greens when they're frozen because it can actually kill the plants. At this time of year, it's very common for us to find our greens frozen solid in the morning, but we don't harvest them then. We wait for the sun to hit the hoop house and warm things up, and for the plants to thaw out. Once they're thawed out, they're safe to harvest without harming the plants. I hope you found these 8 keys to winter growing success helpful. In about a month, I plan to do a winter growing Q&A video, so if you have more questions, please let me know in a comment below, and I'll try to address them in that video. Well, that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching. And until next time, remember, you can change the world 1 yard at a time. You did it again. No, don't go up there.